Hi folks, I'm Trey and welcome to another of my colouring tutorials. I'm returning to a project that I started using a Favour Reads Club design, and I coloured a little lamp on another tutorial, and I'll put a link into the description so you can go find that. So I'm now going to be colouring something else on that design, and I'm going to do the cat. But I'm going to be working with light source and also different contrasts and colours for shading. So this is going to be a wee bit of a challenge, but hopefully anybody that's watching this will find it useful. I'm just going to remind people of the design I'm working with. This is the design I used when I did the lamp, and the lamp is lit and it's going to be casting a light down in almost like a triangle effect. I'm going to be doing this cute little kitten in this tutorial, and hopefully be able to work out the light and the darker sections for that with the lamp above it. Now I started using Arteza pencils on this design, so I'm going to be sticking with those pencils, and the colours I'm going to be using to do this cat is mostly browns. I'm using a dark brown 310, a medium dark brown 306, and for the lighter sections, instead of going for a light brown, I'm going for a yellow, and this is medium yellow 104. And to darken it in further for the shading, I'm going to be using a purple. That's 416, the darkest purple in this set, I think. And I'm hoping that's going to work out quite well. So, the lamp, you can't see it now, but the lamp's shining down in this direction above the cat. So I'm going to try and work out the lighter sections first. So the light's coming down above the cat here, so I think round about this kind of area will mostly be in light. However, it's also turned away, so there'll be sections over in this section, this part of the cat's going to be in shade. Now I'm going to do the lighter sections first using the yellow, and also always be using a light pressure so I can build up the layers. Now this part of the cat is facing towards the light above it. And even though there might be quite a bit of light areas, I also want to put a little bit of depth into this with shading, so I will be darkening in areas that are in the light. And that's one of the reasons why I chose the purple for the very darker sections, so I can use the lighter browns in these lighter sections. I hope that makes sense. So the cat is facing kind of like lying rolled to the side, so I'm going to put the lighter sections, this yellow, it's been caught mostly by the lamp above. Now I've put in where I think the lighter sections are going to be. However, I've done it very lightly so I can adjust it as I go along. Now these sections here, I would normally have that darker, but because the light's catching it, I feel it would be lighter. And same with this tip of this here as well. I feel it would catch the light a little bit. Those paws are curling upwards, so that's going to catch some of the light, and that side of the leg. Same with this, just a little bit on this side of the leg, but as it moves away, I've lightened those paws, but I'll probably darken them in as I go along, because I've just probably put a little bit too much light on that section. Now I'm going to use my medium brown. Now I want to work on the shaded sections first to give me an idea of where I feel it will be darker. And I'm doing this before the other darkening in shaded sections in the lighter area. So I'm going to work on where I think it will be darker, away, from as it's turned away from the light, or overlapping some, parts of the cat's body overlapping and will be in the shade. So this bit I'm colouring at the moment, it's turned away from the lamp, so the lamp would probably glance off it a little bit, not quite as much light on that. And this section here is kind of overlapping, same here. And that's overlapping from the fur above, and it's turned away from the light as well. So that's how I'm working it out as I go along. Now when I'm looking at it, I've decided that this yellow highlight, I want to extend it in parts, because I'm going to go over it, part of that, with the medium brown I'm using. Forgive my croakiness, folks, it's congestion. I suffer quite a lot of it in winter. It gives me a husky voice. So I'm extending the yellow because I'm going to go over some of this extension I'm doing with the medium brown. So now I'm going to overlap some of what I put down, just to make it a slightly lighter medium brown. It's like a gradient effect going towards the light. Now I want to focus on the parts where there's a little bit of shading in the line art. So this section here I'm going to do in that medium brown. So I'm picking up some of these shaded sections and just going over those areas where there's lines to show shading with the medium brown, and that's included into the areas where it's lighter, just to try and give it a little bit of depth. Because even though it is lighter, I still want a little bit of depth in there. Now I'm going to work on my dark brown, and I'm going to start over in the darkest areas first to darken in where I feel it would be darker because it's rolling away from the light. I'll do that first. I'm now going to do the overlapping sections, darkening them a little bit. So sections where the fur goes over and it gives a little bit of depth, darkening those in as well. Not all of them with this dark brown, just part of them that's furthest away from the light. And also this line art that I darkened it with the medium brown earlier, I'm going to darken in some of that with the darker brown. Let's give it a little bit more depth. Not all of it, again, mostly what's away from the light and any overlapping. So this section here, there's fur overlapping, so I'm just going to darken in those sections. So that's how I'm working that out now. And now I'm going to use the purple, the dark purple, and this is to darken in this section that's away from the light, the mostly away from the light. I'll do that first. So I'm going over that dark brown I've just put down, and I'm always using light pressure here so I can adjust it. Dark purple and dark brown work really well together when it comes to shading and darkening in. I use purple quite a lot to darken in. Make my shading that little bit more dramatic. And now I'm going to go into the sections where there's line art to show more depth in shading. So just lightly going over those sections. So that is generally how I'm going to be working with this design. I'm using my yellow again because I'm going to do these pads in these light yellow, this light yellow colour, because I darkened in around them with the dark brown and a little bit with the purple. So I'm now have to build these layers up, and I'll be repeating what I did for the first few layers. So I'm going to do the lighter section, the yellow, overlapping slightly into the medium brown, just to give it more of a gradient effect. Now I'm going to use my medium brown and overlapping very slightly into the lighter sections like I did earlier, but also in the lighter sections I'll be using the medium brown to darken in this line art, give it a bit more depth. And the whole time I'm doing this, I'm using light pressure to be able to build up the layers. Now I'm going in with my darkest brown, and I'm going to add another layer to these sections where there's line art and it's darker. Do that first. Now I'm going to colour in this edge like I did the first time. So I'm just repeating what I did the first time and colouring in this edge furthest away from the light to darken it in. And also any overlapping sections on this side of the kitten's body. And now I'm going to use the dark purple again and go over the darkest, what I feel is the darkest areas that that's been put in by the artwork, and also around the edge of what I've just put down with the darkest brown. Again, just repeating what I did earlier. Now that's 2 layers of each colour, but as you can see it needs a lot more layers. But what I'll be doing is just repeating everything I've just done quite a few times until I'm happy with the depth of this. Now everybody has their own ideas of what they like with depth of colour. I like quite a good colour coverage, and this paper has a bit of tooth, so I still have quite a few layers to get down to cover the white of the tooth. So I'm going to be doing that off camera and I'll come back to this. Well, I put a few layers down of the colours I was working with, and I also did a little bit of a blend. Now when I say a few layers down, I would say probably about 4 of each colour, and I'm quite happy with, you know, that level of colour. It's worked out quite nicely because the lamp is above and catching certain areas, and I think I've got the shading quite well. I did a little bit of soft shade blending with a cotton bud, and that's because I didn't want to push too much of the darker into the lighter areas, and with solution it might, you know, do that. Also I kind of fancied a little bit of texture on this. With it being fur, so yes, I kind of like to leave a little bit of texture. It's worked out quite nicely, really. I'm just going to zoom out. Got the lamp in there. So that's the effect of the shading for the cat that's underneath. That kind of effect. And possibly a little bit darker on the head area, but I kind of like the fact I wanted to keep some kind of depth in that area. So, you know, I could go over this a little bit more with a bit of brown just to darken it in slightly so it's not quite as bright, and that will work. There we go. It just darkens it in a little bit. How do I feel about the contrasts and colours? I actually like how they've worked. They've really darkened in the brown nicely, and the contrast between the yellow and the actually quite dark browns, I like that as well. Been a bit more bolder with my colouring with this putty cat, and I like it. Sometimes you learn quite a bit when I'm a bit braver with my colours. So that's the end of this tutorial, and I will return to it, to this design in the future, and colour another element on it, taking into account the above light source. So I hope anybody that's watched this has found this useful. Please do leave any comments, come and chat with me on my Facebook page. Love to hear from you. So I'll say bye for now, and I'll see you again in the near future with another tutorial.